right way around. There we go. Well, good afternoon and hello, everybody. I hope you're still feeling the little buzz from our salsa. I know I am. Sonali and I, we are delighted to be taking part today, and we're looking very forward to sharing this afternoon's session with you. So we're looking at how emotions are going to enable us, or how emotions enable our success at work. So let's begin by giving that some thought. What I'd like you to do is complete the sentence using your own words. Just reflect on it for a moment or two, and then turn to the person next to you and share your ideas. I'll give you about 1.5 minutes for that. So I'm sure lots of discussions happening, as I can hear, and I'm sure that through your discussions you'll realize that emotions are always present, right? They're always present at work. They can be both helpful and unhelpful, and they impact our behaviour, they impact the decisions we make, they impact our work performance and even our working relationships. And today, this afternoon, we're going to take an intentional and very practical approach, and we're going to discover how our emotions can enable our success at work. So what I'd like us to do is just remember, what I'd like to invite you to do is to share only what you're comfortable with, give each other some time and space to share ideas or to speak, and obviously to keep your conversations confidential. Now you'll notice on your tables that they look a little bit different to when you arrived this morning, but you've got some foolscap paper, you've got some sticky notes, and then you've got the all-important card deck, the emotional culture deck. So we're going to be working with this deck in a few moments, but we're also going to make use of some technology. So I'd like you to take out your mobile phones, and we're going to like you to join Slido by taking a picture of or accessing it through the QR code. And if anyone is struggling, to let us know. But I think you'll all be fine.
And if you haven't used Slido before, your responses are anonymous. So yes, it's one reason why we're using it.
We're going to ask the question, how familiar are you with the emotional culture deck that you have on the table? That exact thing. You maybe have never come across it, you use it regularly perhaps, or maybe only moderately familiar. That's almost everybody, but we're waiting for about 40. Yeah. Like this, yeah. Oh, this. Okay. Still can't get in. Yeah. You're nearly there.
Are there 40 people here, Leanne?
Yeah, Nick's nearly there. I don't want him to lose out.
And who's good at maths? What's 8% of 37?
3.
No half people here, no.
You're in? Oh, excellent. Okay, great. Right, so for those who are obviously, which is most of the room, that are not familiar with it, we're going to get cracking straight away and use it, right? So we've only got one deck per table, so you're going to need to maneuver in some way to make sure that we all have access to it. But let me just show you what's inside the box. You're going to have some black cards, right, that have got our preferred emotions that we tend to prefer to feel, right? Then we've got a pack of white cards that are less preferred emotions. And then you're going to have some multicolored cards, but I'd like you to ignore these for the moment. That you just leave in the box. Okay.
So what might be a good thing to do is to put the multicolored cards back in the box and to clear as much of the table as possible, because we want all of you to look at the cards. You will a bit later. Yes, you will. So probably quite soon, actually. Yes.
Yes. Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks very much. Right, I'd like you to, thanks, everybody looks really organised. Some people have even moved the tables, which is great. They've given themselves some space. Some have even started spreading it out, spreading the cards out, so well done. I'd like you to think about last week. I'd like you to think about last week and your experience of last week. And answer the question, how have you felt at work in the past week? I'd like you to choose one preferred emotion, which is your black card, and one less preferred emotion, which is your white card. And to remember that, if you could just maybe pop it onto a sticky, because then you're going to enter it into Slido, right? And you're going to...
Tell me what less preferred means. Does it mean you're second, or does it mean you're entry bottom?
No, so less preferred is how you did not want to feel.
You did not want to feel, yeah.
Okay, hold on.
That's a good question.
I don't understand what we're doing.
Okay, sorry. Excuse me, I'm just... Hello. Hi, we're just going to do a quick explanation. So this is about thinking about the past week.
Yes.
And the preferred emotion was how you wanted to feel last week and did.
Wanted to feel.
Yep.
Not how you
And your less preferred,
did.
and you did. Yep. And your less preferred is how you perhaps didn't want to feel and did.
Okay, got it.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And don't overthink it, because obviously we have a multitude of emotions that we feel. So just choose.
But I'm going to give you a couple of minutes and share your story about these emotions with each other at the tables.
Yeah.
I mean, I did one in one line and the other one. I did the black one in the top line and the white one in the second line.
Black is what I did actually. The white one.
Okay, hello. So I'm guessing that not many of you work in Agile, because in Agile communities, what we do is we put our hand up, and I'm just going to explain it now actually, because it'll be useful for the rest of the session as well. So when we put our hand up, and if we catch your eye, then please put your hand up as well and finish your sentence, and then it's like a wave. And I've done this with like more than 100 people, and it can be really fast. So, yeah. So what we're showing you here is the words that you chose from last week. And one of the things that I find really wonderful whenever we use this is it looks different every single time. And that's because obviously we are complex human beings with different experiences. And what I also find when I have conversations with people and we debrief this, which we're not going to do now because we're going to send you into a longer activity where we will have an opportunity to do that, is a word that might look very straightforward, like overwhelmed, is going to probably mean something slightly different to each of you. So while overwhelmed has a general meaning, the context in which each of you will feel overwhelmed is going to be different. So when we hear words that are related to emotions, it's actually really useful to ask the person what they meant by that, because otherwise we tend to make assumptions about what people are feeling. And as Leanne mentioned, emotions are part of our working life. They are present at work. We go into work as full human beings with them, and they influence everything that we do. So understanding our own emotions and the emotions of others is really important. So I'm just going to very quickly explain the deck a bit, and we deliberately kind of probably put you into a little bit of discomfort by not explaining the deck at the start. And that's because sometimes we need to deal with those kind of uncomfortable feelings and think about strategies that we're going to use at work. So just to explain the deck is from New Zealand, not created by me, sadly, created by somebody called Jeremy Dean, whose organisation is called Riders and Elephants. And if any of you have read Switch by Chip and Dan Heath, there's a metaphor about riders and elephants, which is where he named the company. The deck itself was created about 10 years ago after lots of user testing. And what you may have noticed is that he's essentially tried to flip conversations, and the starting point is having black as a preferred emotion and white as a less preferred emotion. Because again, a lot of our biases tend to be white is good and black is not. So that's one thing. I'm going to ask you whether any of you noticed the 3 cards that were the same in both decks. Yeah. So restless, rebellious, and uncomfortable. And that's because we might be in a situation where we want to feel uncomfortable. If we want to stretch ourselves, for example, it's a preferred emotion. Or we might be in a situation where we don't want to feel uncomfortable. And we're feeling that discomfort, and it's really unhelpful because maybe it limits our creativity. So emotions are really nuanced as well. The other thing is about language. So we use the words preferred emotions or less preferred emotions, or desired emotions or undesired emotions, and we don't use positive and negative. And that's because all emotions are useful. They're all data, and they tell us what we care about. They tell us about what we might want to do in response to it. And so again, in emotion science, we have terms like emotional granularity, which is where being able to distinguish between an emotion like embarrassment and disappointment and anger. That's really important so that we can then know what we need to do to actually shift from that emotion into something that's more helpful. The other thing is that these words, and as I said before, while they have a generic shared meaning that you will all understand, they will mean different things to different people in different contexts. So for example, I used to work in a pharmaceutical company with research scientists. The word doubt, which is a white card, a less preferred emotion, was an emotion that they wanted to feel when they were doing their research, because they wanted that feeling of doubt. It's something that they felt was really important. For many other people, curiosity, which is a black card, might be sufficient. And again, it's very contextual. It depends on each person and their sort of context. So these words don't have definitions, and when we work with individuals and teams, we invite them to define what it means for them in terms of their preferred culture and their preferred emotions at work. There are also these dotted cards. So this isn't an infinite deck. So if there's a word that isn't on here that's really important for you, we invite you to use a sticky note, stick it on here, and create your own. So that's a kind of quick summary of the deck. It's also used with teams. This is an example of a team culture workshop. It's also used with stakeholders for stakeholder engagement. It's used in change, so emotional change strategies, because a lot of the work around culture tends to be very cognitive. It tends to be rooted in values, which are really important. And if we don't add in emotions, we actually end up with just half the picture. So I noticed Gustavo Rossetti's work being mentioned earlier. So we have a canvas with the emotional culture deck, which we use alongside Gustavo's deck. So we kind of get both that kind of balance of cognitive and emotional culture. So what we are going to do now, if I can get this moving in the right direction. Can't get it moving at all. Interesting. Oh. Right, okay, so what we're now going to do is you're going to do a bit of a deep dive. You're going to spend about just under 10 minutes doing this. We'd like you to look into the next week at work that you have. And the other thing actually I should say as well is that the way that, certainly the way that I use this deck in organisations, it's not a therapeutic tool, it's a future-focused, solution-focused tool, but it can be used in many different contexts. It's used in schools as well, for example. So what is your success at work? Oops. Hold on, we seem to be missing a question. So what we're going to invite you to do is to think about your success at work in the next week. So you might want to think about a particular interaction that you're going to have with someone else. It might be a meeting or a conversation, or it simply might be something that you're working on. It might be the start of a project or whatever is important for you. And what we'd like you to do is to choose 3 cards and put them onto Slido. 3 cards that you would like to feel in the context of this particular moment that matters to you in the next week. Again, we invite you to do this really quickly. Just think about your context, choose 3 cards, and then start thinking about what that means for you. And if you could put it onto Slido, please.
You probably
you want to use the black cards, but you're welcome to go to the white cards as well. Wonderful, thank you. So I think most of you have put your cards on there. Is anyone still typing? I won't move this. Is anyone else still typing? Please type if you are. You're done. Okay, lovely. So actually, I'm going to come back to that. I know, it's like a mystery. So what you're going to do now is think on your own and then move into a pair as soon as you've considered the 3 questions. And I'm going to leave the questions up there so you'll have them for the whole of your conversation. We're going to invite you to think about what the feelings mean to you in this context, the feelings you've chosen. What difference will it make if you feel that way? What will you be noticing about yourself? So the thing when we work with emotions is they're not fluffy. They're very tangible. What will you be noticing about your mindset, about your behaviours, about what you'll be saying, what you will be doing? What words or phrases might you be using if it's something in a conversation? Or what phrases and words will you be using in your head? And then what will others be noticing about you? And how will they be responding? And what will that do to the interaction? And if it's something that's where you're doing this on your own, what would a fly on a wall or someone from Mars be noticing about you? So if you take a moment to think about that, and then as soon as you're ready, start sharing whatever you wish to with with the people at your table. We're going to give you about six minutes.
Yep.
And we'll let you know when it's half time. We'll come around with a card. Okay? Any questions about what you're doing? Okay, go ahead. Okay, well, I hope you had some interesting conversations. These are the emotions that you chose, and I imagine that you will have discovered if you had the same emotion as someone else, that there would have been similarities and also some differences. So what we are going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Leanne, and the question is, what next? What are you going to do as a result of this? And also some reflection.
Thanks, Sonali. Right, so we're going to reflect on the conversations you've just had. You're going to think about some action steps that you can take as a result. And then we're also going to reflect on this, reflect on the question and reflect on the session, this afternoon. And maybe you might think of some questions you might share with us later. And in order to do this, I'd like you to each take one of these A4 pieces of paper. I think I put 4 on each desk. So this desk that's got a few more people, you might have some spares. Right? You just get this onto the next.
Yep.
I think it's. Because now we've got to go. There we go.
There we go.
Right.
Yep. We'll do that.
Right. So once you've got your piece of paper, some of you might be familiar with this reflection technique, but you need a piece of paper and a pen. And what I'd like you to do is fold your piece of paper in half, and then I'd like you to fold it in half again. And then you're going. I've got to stay this side. Sorry. And then you're going to open it up. So you've got, your 4. You've got your 4 quarters. Right? Everyone ready? Right, and then what I'd like you to do is just quietly take your pen or pencil and draw a continuous spiral as slowly and tightly as possible in the middle of your page. And I'll tell you when to stop. You can start now. Right, you can stop. Right, and in one little block of your piece of paper, everyone's spirals are looking a little different. I'd like you to think about the prompts in one of the blocks. So from my conversation, the actions I'm considering taking are, so what actions are going to enable you to feel those emotions that you chose just now? What will you be doing? What will you be saying? What do you need to be thinking? Right, in the next block, a first small that I commit to taking, so you might have a few steps. Maybe you can choose one small step that you definitely can commit to taking. Write that down.
And as a bonus, you might want to add when you're going to take this step.
Right, and now let's take a moment to just think about the insights that you've had from the session. Anything that stood out for you, something that you've noticed about yourself, perhaps? Right, and now that you have given this some thought and you've had this experience, your curiosity might be piqued. So what are you curious about now? And maybe there's a question or two you'd like to note down. So we'd love to hear from you, at least from two people. What have your insights been from experiencing this session? We'd like to share something.
I chose words that I thought the coming week were like, I need these for things that I'm doing.
Yes.
And then I realised they were non-negotiables and I have to have them all the time, not just for that particular They're not my hell yeahs. They are my, almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's the bottom rung.
Yeah.
It's not the top bit. It's the absolute minimum for me.
And actually, it's really interesting in response to that, and also in response to yours before we take another couple. So one of the things that we can do with this is identify how we want to feel at work or how we want to feel in life, and those can be fairly stable. And then we can also identify in response to situations, how do we want to feel in this particular situation? And just that intentionality can be really helpful in terms of making, choices between what's more important to us and what's less important. So, because as you say, we are complex people. We feel many of these emotions a lot of the time. I'm conscious you had a question as well, or rather an insight.
It was like a thing I'm curious about now. I was reflecting on what you said about when someone's told me how they feel, how often I have assumed that I know what that means and not asked, and then tried to react based on how I've assumed they want me to. So, yeah, reflecting on that.
Thank you for sharing that, because asking the question might be better than just reacting to that.
Yeah, I think one thing that stood out to me looking at the two different coloured cards is a lot of the black cards were stuff within my control, and the white cards were what other people caused me to feel at that point. It was stuff that's almost outside of my control.
And that's really interesting, because I think what can be really helpful with that, because often when we experience these kind of white card emotions is we do have a sense of not having agency. And what can be really helpful is actually looking at what is within our control and what we can do, and then looking at strategies that we can use. So there might be cognitive reappraisal, for example, looking at it differently, or temporal distancing, thinking, how might I feel about this in a week's time, or at the end of my life, or whatever it is. So there are various strategies, and we probably use them all a lot already. And that's a really useful first response. And then my invitation would be, what could your next response be to enable you to get some agency back?
Can I just add something to what you said? Because you said along the lines of what other people make me feel. Did you say something like that? Along those lines?
I wouldn't say necessarily make, I think it's a consequence of something happening.
So I've been doing a lot of sort of reflection, and I've got to a place where I say, in my view, no one makes me feel anything. It's me that chooses, and that's what I've put on here, because when you said what you chose about, and I know, I'll be really honest with you all, what's the point of this? Does I feel the emotion I want to, and if I don't feel it, I act as if I feel it.
And that could be a really useful strategy for you. And I think that's the thing, is we all have different strategies. And I think that it comes back to that, that kind of agency and the
Because you wanna
language of
have
emotions.
control. Oh,
Yes.
like, that's my need for
Yeah.
control. I can't
Yeah.
imagine that someone else could do something.
Yeah.
It's me.
And it's interesting because I think some people use language like they might say, I am angry. Whereas we could shift to, I am feeling angry, or I notice that I'm feeling angry, or I notice that in this moment I'm feeling angry. And the way that we use language, both to ourselves and with others, can really also help us to get that kind of agency back. I'm just conscious of time. So we've got one last Slido for you. One card, a forced choice. How have you felt about this this
From
session?
any of the cards.
Either or, whatever you felt.
I thought I need one. Okay. Oh, that's quite a lot of power, hey? Right. Everybody, thank you so much for participating in this session this afternoon. So we have introduced the emotional culture deck to you. You've actually had conversations around your emotions, and I'm hoping that you are leaving with an increased awareness of how your emotions can enable your success, but not only an increased awareness, but a very small actionable step that you can take. So thank you very much.
Thank you.